Hey, Lark and Rose here. I wanted to record a quick rant about the concept of incrementalism as a possible way to achieve a free society. This was, I think, Mira asked about it under some post. I already forget where. And I was going to type out a response, and I realized I should just do a video about this. And of course, this ties into the question of using politics to achieve freedom. I want to describe why I think trying to use incrementalism to achieve freedom is both tactically and philosophically a really bad idea. And I know there are a bunch of people who, have perfectly good intentions who are hoping that's going to get them there, and I'm going to explain why it's never going to on a practical basis, and we shouldn't look to it as a solution because of the moral principles involved. So the basic idea of incrementalism is, well, government has built up its power and its control of things, piece by piece. First they just say, we're just protecting you from foreigners or something. We're just protecting you from armies, and we'll do a little bit of crime, and now we should probably regulate this and that, and it gets its tentacles into more and more things over time. And the idea is, well, can we reverse that? Can we slowly get its tentacles out of one thing at a time and reduce it down and eventually be rid of it entirely and get to a stateless society that way? No, you can't. And an analogy I often use, because it actually works, is the analogy of slavery. The abolitionists who said slavery is bad and should be ended right now. It's all the way evil. It's fundamentally wrong. It's not okay to do it a little bit. They were abolitionists. They weren't incrementalists. But consider that example, because if they said, well, all right, you're still going to have slaves, but you can only make them work 12 hours a day, and later it'll be 10 hours a day, and you can only whip them this hard, and you can only do this and that and the other thing. There's only two choices. Either the slaves are the rightful property of the slave owner, in which case he has the right to do anything he wants to them, or the slaves are human beings and own themselves, in which case the slave owner has no right to impose anything on them without their consent. It's one or the other. It's digital. It's not analog. It's not like it's possible for the slave owner to own, well, I own 53% of this human being, and the other 47% he owns himself. It doesn't work that way. And it can't work that way with a thing, because if whoever has the final say on what is done with that thing, whether it's a chair or a human being, they're the owner by definition. Either you own yourself or somebody else owns you. And that exact same thing translates over into statism. If you accept the notion that government has the right to rule at all, that political power is legitimate at all, then how can you pretend that there's somewhere you can draw a line? If the ruling class has the right to take 17% of what you earn, why don't they have the right to take 23% of what you earn? Why don't they have the right to take 98% of what you earn? If they get to decide how much of what you earn they're allowed to take, they own you. What they let you keep, being so benevolent in their slave mastery, is just up to them. It's just their whim. If you think legislation determines the proper level of taxation, then you think they all the way own all the people that they're taxing. And so, tactically, it's ridiculous to accept that premise and then think they're going to go backwards. Think they're going to say, well, we really like robbing you, but we're going to rob you a little bit less, and then a little bit less, and a little bit less, until after however many years, we're just going to decide, now we don't own you anymore. When does that ever happen? Power corrupts. Power doesn't, make people more noble. Which is why governments always do this. They grow and they expand, they bigger and bigger until there's a revolution, or there's an invasion, or there's an economic collapse, or some catastrophic thing changes the game. But they don't just gradually go down. So on a tactical level, I would say it just doesn't happen. You don't ever see it. I mean, people have been, the Libertarian Party's been around since the 70s, I think. Have things gotten better? People have tried to vote for the lesser of two evils. They've tried to vote for conservatives. I was a freaking statist, and I was all excited in 1994 about the 94 Republican Revolution, with a bunch of candidates, a bunch of whom had never been politicians before, getting into office saying, we're going to slash this and cut these taxes and remove these programs and do all these things, rah, rah, rah. And I was all excited. I was 2 years away from becoming an anarchist, but I was still a statist. I was all excited. Nothing happened. Nothing of anything significance happened because the system is built of, by, and for the parasites. It's not built to give away its own power. And a bunch of people who got into, who were elected in that 94 landslide where the Republicans took over control of the House and Senate, a bunch of the people who went in quickly said that, what you see on CNN is a joke. This is not how it works. If you don't, go in there and kiss the butts of the powerful psychos, you can't get anything done. You can't accomplish anything. I give up. It can't be done. So even a bunch of the well-intentioned people going in, when they saw how the machine actually operates, realized, I can't do anything. I can't shrink this thing, much less make it all the way disappear. So on a practical basis, it doesn't work. But on a philosophical basis, of course it doesn't work. You're asking the masters to have permission to have a little bit more freedom each day until finally you're going to ask the masters to give you permission to all the way be free. Asking them implies that it's their choice. And if you think it's their choice, you're already their slave. You're already conceding the only point that matters, which is that you don't think you own yourself. You think they own you, and you think you need their permission to be free, whether it's all the way free or a little bit freer. Incrementalism completely relies on the premise that it's up to government how much of our money we're allowed to keep, how much of our lives we're allowed to run, how many of our own choices we're allowed to make. If you accept that premise, you all the way failed. You're all the way a slave. You may have a more permissive master, you may have a nastier master, but you're all the way a slave as soon as you think your life and your freedom is somebody else's decision to make. Which is why politics is always going to fail as a route to achieve actual freedom. You can't get there by playing a game that is founded on the notion that the ruling class has the right to do anything. The moment you vote, the moment you whine for this or that legislation, you're saying, I accept that this is legitimate, that they have authority, that they have the right to rule, and now I'm going to ask them to be... It doesn't matter what you ask them after that. You just told them you think they're your masters. You just told them you think you are their slave. That is not the way to get freed. It's not the way to get to a free society. So no, incrementalism, practically, it doesn't work. And philosophically, it makes no sense. It's like slaves saying, well, we don't think this is all that good, but we should start petitioning the master to be a little bit nicer and a little bit nicer and a little bit nicer and a little bit more permissive, give us a little more free time, work us a little less hard until eventually he lets us go. If it's the master's choice, you're never getting free. If it's your choice, don't ask the freaking master. Don't try to do it incrementally. Run away. And that is what rational human beings have to do from the state, knowing that they're going to chase you, they'll try to rob you, they'll try to do this and that and the other thing. Don't ask them for permission. Slave masters don't give permission to slaves to be free. It's just not how the world works. And don't treat them as if it's their choice to make. And all of politics treats it as if it's their choice to make. Even the politician who says, put me into office and I will give you your freedom. Who the hell are you to pretend that it's up to you to give anybody their freedom? You arrogant psycho. They already have their freedom. They don't need the permission of any politician of any stripe. They don't need the legislative permission of a ruling class. And as long as people think they need that permission, they're still enslaved. They're still enslaved in their mind. They're going to still be enslaved in their body. Which is why, no, incrementalism is not ever the way to achieve freedom. Incrementalism is part of the game that legitimizes the subjugation of mankind.